Hawks win for the first time this season, defeating the Utah Mammoth 3-1. I'll break down all the key takeaways from the first victory of the Jeff Blashill era.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Blackhawks fans? Welcome on into another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. You can go and check me out on X at JackBushman2. Make sure to go and show some support to Locked On Blackhawks on Instagram as well, as that's an account I've got up and running again over these last couple of months, posting some cool clips and shorts and stories and whatnot. So make sure to go and check it out if you haven't done so already. And I also got to let you know that today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel. Go and download the FanDuel app now or check out FanDuel.com to get $300 worth of bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All right, Blackhawks fans, happy Victory Tuesday for both the Blackhawks and the Bears last night. It was always the Chicago parlay, despite what the officiating tried to do to our Bears last night. Great to see Caleb Williams get the win in his hometown of Washington, D.C., and good to see the Blackhawks get their first win, a much-needed one, to wrap up their quick two-game homestand and earn their first win of the 25-26 campaign, and also the first win of the Jeff Blashill era. Congratulations to the new Blackhawks head coach. He kind of downplayed it during his media availability following the game, but I'm sure internally was very happy to finally get that one out of the way. And as he told all of us, hopefully there's many, many more to come. But before I dive into my full thoughts, stats, recap from last night's win over Utah, do first want to just say thank you very much, so much to everyone out there who reached out and showed words of support. I saw a lot of the kind comments down in the YouTube comment section. Haven't been able to respond to any of them here yet. It's been a pretty chaotic last 24 hours, but I do greatly appreciate you all both understanding and, like I said, just reaching out during this tough time for me. It is with a heavy heart that I do want to announce that my grandfather unfortunately did pass yesterday morning. But as I posted out on X, I'm very happy he got to see one last Ohio State football victory over the weekend. Always was a big Ohio State fan, even though he didn't go there. He grew up in Ohio, actually went to college at the University of Miami and Bowling Green, so has a lot of Ohio ties and, has a lot of respect for the Mid-American, but it's true, blue blood, if you will, or red blood, however you want to call it, was the Ohio State Buckeyes. And just super fortunate I got to spend as much time with my grandpa as I did over the last couple of days before he unfortunately passed yesterday morning. So yeah, thank you all again so much. It really does mean the world to me. I got reached out to by so many different people yesterday, and definitely helped me get through a pretty tough time for yours truly. But with that being said, let's talk about some happier news here, because the Blackhawks finally got in the W column last night. As I'm sure some of you can all tell, not only has it just been a pretty chaotic last few days, I'm also starting to get a little bit sick again, as I was like 2 weeks ago. I just can't seem to shed this little bit of a cold, so don't mind me drinking from my water every now and then throughout today's episode. But great to see Blackhawks get a, like I said, much needed 3-1 win over the Utah Mammoth last night. Funny enough, it might have been actually their worst performance of the opening 4 games, and funny how that led to their first victory, but that's the way that hockey goes sometimes. Blackhawks only recorded a total of 14 shots on goal in this game. Did get the extra net, or the empty netter, to score a third goal for the opening time here this season. But the real key factors in the Blackhawks coming out on the right end of the final outcome were Ilya Mikheyev, Spencer Knight, and Andrei Burakovsky. Those were my 3 stars of the game for the Hawks last night in that order. Starting with Ilya Mikheyev, what a performance it was from him on both sides of the puck. And honestly, it's just a continuation of what I talked about on the last episode and what I talked about throughout all of last season. The pace that Ilya Mikheyev provides on both ends of the ice, it's so needed for this group. I honestly feel like he provides a style of play that Jeff Blashill really enjoys. And it's just a continuation of what we saw from Mikheyev last year, where he potted 20 goals offensively, even though, he doesn't have like elite offensive abilities. Fared well when he got an opportunity up on the top line with Connor Bedard. Had his first 2 goals of the season last night to steer the Blackhawks to a 3-1 win. Also led them in terms of the game score impact chart. Gritty first goal scored by Mikheyev. It was actually like the same move that he had just tried like 20 seconds earlier, but this time managed to stuff the puck through Utah Mammoth goaltender Vitek Vanacek, who was making his first appearance with Utah after signing a 1-year deal with them during free agency. He's actually had the Blackhawks number throughout his career with like a .920 save percentage and a 3-1-1 record in 5 starts. So big that Mikheyev was able to give the Blackhawks a 1-0 lead in the second period after a scoreless and pretty uneventful opening 20. I think the most notable thing that happened in the first period was the lights shutting off in the middle of play at the United Center. Aside from that, nothing really went down in a sleepy first period. The two teams combined for only 11 shots on goal total, and I believe there were only 6 scoring chances registered in that first period as well at even strength. So yeah, not a whole lot of action going on, but the Blackhawks, even though the game was kind of starting to tilt in favor of Utah there in that middle frame, as I mentioned, that's the way that hockey goes sometimes. Ilya Mikheyev with a greasy goal to get the Blackhawks on the board. He would go on to add the empty netter for good measure, which I thought was very fitting. And when Mikheyev was on the ice last night, in all situations, the Blackhawks had a 9-8 lead in shots on goal, 9-7 advantage in scoring chances, and also led 7-4 in high danger chances. That was in all situations, Blackhawks fans. And a little over 3 minutes of Mikheyev's 18 minutes total on the ice last night were spent while the Hawks were shorthanded. And like he did against the Montreal Canadiens on Saturday in the home opener, even though the Canadiens potted 2 power play goals, the Blackhawks handed them 10-man advantage opportunities. And I thought Ilya Mikheyev on the 8 penalties that they did kill off, I mentioned on yesterday's episode that they really did a good job of limiting the shots on goal and dangerous opportunities in general during those 8 specific power play opportunities for the Habs. And Ilya Mikheyev was a big factor in that. He was excellent on the penalty kill again last night, having an active stick, using his wheels on the forecheck to eliminate time and space. He was really solid, and I was very impressed with the two-way presence that he provided for this team down on the third line, who I'll have more on here in just a second. But first, got to get to Spencer Knight, excuse me. What a start to the season it has been for Spencer Knight in goal for the Blackhawks. Last night, picking up where he left off in his last time out, stopped 22 of the 23 shots that he faced to finally get that first win of the season. Played well enough in net to get the win in both of his first 2 outings. The Hawks just unfortunately didn't give him enough run support. Like I said, with the extra attacker here tonight, it's the first time in the opening 4 games that the Blackhawks have scored 3 goals. But Knight really came up clutch in the second period. Utah was really dominant in terms of puck possession in that frame, spent a lot of time in the Blackhawks end, but Knight was excellent to stop all 13 shots that he faced in that frame to keep the Blackhawks ahead 1-0 going into the third period. For the first time this season, the Blackhawks had the lead going into the third. Unfortunately, that didn't last very long in that final frame, as JJ Peterka cashed in for the lone Mammoth goal of the game just 1 minute and 2 seconds into that third period. But that was the only blemish on Knight's record last night. Wasn't really his fault. That one found the back of the net. Awesome pass from Dylan Gunther to find Peterka all alone at the far post, and it also came off of a failed clear attempt by Sam Renzel. But that's 3 for 3 now for Spencer Knight in terms of high-end starts that he's given the Blackhawks this year, and he now has a 2.85 goals against average and .920 save percentage in his first 3 starts. Really good stuff from the 24-year-old netminder in his first real full season as a number 1 goalie in the NHL. And then got to bring up Andre Burakovsky as well, who scored the game-winning goal on the power play. The Blackhawks' second unit cashes in. Beautiful feed by Nick Foligno off the wall to recognize that Burakovsky was all alone in front of Vanacek. And then also a really good play by Colton Dock as well to, first off, kick that puck over to Nick Foligno to allow him the opportunity to cross it over to Andre Burakovsky in front. That's 2 goals now for Burakovsky in his last 3 games. He's been a lot more lively than he was in the season opener against the Florida Panthers, and also all throughout the preseason. Whenever he played, I didn't really think he was all that noticeable, but his size and his pace, that's been evident over these last couple of contests. And he talked about how great it feels to finally get a little bit more comfortable during his post-game availability. And I'm sure had to feel great to cash in on the game winner in his 700th career NHL game. Big time goal from Burakovsky. Wasn't really all that noticeable on the top line throughout the course of the game, but came up big on the power play to net his first GWG with the Blackhawks. Couple of other quick takeaways I wanted to get into as well. I mentioned when talking about Ilya Mikheyev, I was going to get into more on the third line here in just a second. Well, when the Blackhawks third line of Ryan Donato, Jason Dickinson, and Ilya Mikheyev was on the ice, the Hawks led 13-5 in shot attempts, 8-1 in shots on goal, and 8-2 in scoring chances at even strength. And without them on the ice, the shot attempts were 30-6 in favor of the Mammoth. The shots on goal were 10-2 in Utah's advantage, and they also led 12-3 in scoring chances at 5-on-5. So, like I said, it wasn't really the prettiest performance from the Blackhawks. They didn't honestly play all that well, but the third line made a worlds of difference. Ilya Mikheyev cashing in with those 2 goals, and also the defensive play that they provided. They honestly, weren't in their defensive zone a lot, but when they were, they shut down anything that the Mammoth had going on. And as Blashill alluded to during his post-game presser, the best thing a third line, a checking line like those 3 can do is make the team's best offensive players defend consistently. And that's what happened last night. I was really, really impressed with that third line, and I thought Jason Dickinson was really excellent and a key factor in his return to the lineup. Was listed as a game time decision, but the Hawks were fortunate that he was able to go, because I don't know if they come away with this win without Jason Dickinson. He had the primary assist on Ilya Mikheyev's goal. Shout out to Ryan Donato as well for getting the secondary assist for his first point of the season. They were the leading charge for the Blackhawks last night and the ones who truly made a difference in this final outcome. Also, wanted to give a shout out to Frank Nazar. Was not a great night for the Teravainen, Nazar, Bertuzzi trio, their least impactful game of the season thus far. Teravainen did generate an assist, but Nazar, unfortunately, had his point streak come to an end. Wasn't a very good night for Frankie, but I love to see him still make an impact with the game on the line. He drew a high sticking penalty on Mammoth defenseman John Marino with just over 3 minutes left to play. That put Utah in a really bad position down the stretch of this game. Because they were shorthanded in the final minutes, they weren't able to get Vitek Vanacek off for the extra attacker until there was like 40 seconds left in the third period. And at that point in time, there just wasn't enough seconds remaining for them to go and generate high danger opportunities. So wasn't a super notable game or noticeable game from Nazar, but I love that he still found a way to make an impact down the stretch. And then last but certainly not least, got to talk about Wyatt Kaiser, who continues to impress me, Blackhawks fans. 3 hits. One of them was a really good one on Brandon Tanev when he was entering the Blackhawks offensive zone that actually came like just 5 or 10 seconds before the lights shut off at the United Center. But Kaiser led all Blackhawks defensemen with 21 minutes and 49 seconds of time on ice, also chipped in for 2 block shots. And I just continue to be impressed with how much growth he continues to show day in and day out on the defensive side of things with his active stick, despite not being the biggest body. Will lay those checks in center ice if you have your head down. And I just think he's been the steadiest defensive presence for the Blackhawks so far through these opening 4 games. Really good stuff from number 44 to help the Blackhawks defense not really give up all that many high danger opportunities last night as well, especially outside of the second period. All right. There are my key takeaways from the Blackhawks' first win of the season, the first win of the Jeff Blashill era. Coming up in just a moment here, Blackhawks fans, I'll break down Blashill going with another 11 forward, 7 defenseman lineup. Apologies, Blackhawks fans, but first I do got to talk to you all real quick about Monarch Money. most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, super easy to use interface, both available on your phone and on your laptop. And Monarch even does all of the heavy lifting for you so that you can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, and finally feel in control of your money without ever having to touch a spreadsheet. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks any longer. Go and use our promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps at monarchmoney.com, and you'll also get half off on your first year. Again, that's 50% off on your first year at monarchmoney.com when you use our promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps. Real quick, just wanted to say thank you to everyone for making Locked On Blackhawks your very first listen here to start off your day. And a reminder to smash that like button, subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube if you haven't done so already. I thank you all very much for the support. Segment 2, Jeff Blashill elected to go with 11 forwards and 7 defensemen for the second time over the last 3 games. And it sounds like that's going to be something he's going to do a lot throughout the 25-26 campaign. And when asked about it during post-game media availability, he said it's just simply because of the number of young defensemen that they have on the roster. And he was kind of calling a spade when he said, when you have this many young defensemen, you're not necessarily sure what you're going to get from them on a nightly basis. So having 7 instead of 6 kind of increases the odds that someone's going to be on top of their game and it's going to help out your blue line. It gives you just a little bit of a better chance. And he also mentioned that because of the different roles that these young players play, right? Artie Levshinov, Sam Renzel, quarterback, the top 2 power play units, Louis Crevier, Connor Murphy, they both play on the penalty kill, right? It helps kind of even out the minutes there on the back end. So despite, 11 forwards and 7 defensemen not really being my favorite lineup strategy, and honestly, the Blackhawks win last night over Utah. I can't remember the last time they got a win when they dressed 11 forwards and 7 defensemen. I mentioned this on yesterday's show, whether it was Joel Quenneville, Jeremy Colleton, Luke Richardson, or now Jeff Blashill up until last night's game. I couldn't tell you the last time the Blackhawks were on the right end of the final outcome when going with that lineup strategy, but nice for them to get that one out of the way with that being the case last night. But with the Blackhawks going with 11 forwards and 7 defensemen, kind of surprisingly, it didn't seem like, originally at the morning skate, it was going to be that way. But funny enough, that's what I guessed during my preview of this matchup on segment 3 of yesterday's episode. But I didn't think it was going to be both Lucas Reichel and Sam Lafferty being healthy scratches. I honestly didn't really expect Jason Dickinson to return so soon, but like I talked about in segment 1, thank goodness he did, because made an impact in lots of ways with a primary assist. Also won 8 of 17 faceoffs in his return, which I'll talk more about here in just a second. But both Levshinov and Crevier being in the lineup meant that, unfortunately, Lucas Reichel and Sam Lafferty were on the outside looking in. Levshinov, I thought, had a decently solid game in his return to the lineup after being healthy scratched in the home opener, which I thought was a little bit interesting. He was out there for both of the Blackhawks' first 2 goals, Mikheyev's stuff shot, and then also was out there with the second power play unit when Andrei Burakovsky netted the game winner. And first and foremost, I just love how hard Artie celebrates. Like, he genuinely reacts like he's someone in the crowd whenever the Blackhawks score a goal. Threw his arm around Ilya Mikheyev last night and kind of gave him a little bit of a death grip there. And it's not the first time Levshinov has celebrated a little bit too hard and maybe kind of, I don't want to say upset his teammates a little bit, but definitely caught them by surprise. It happened to Connor Bedard last year. And I don't think Ilya Mikheyev was expecting such a wrap around his neck following his first of 2 goals in the game. But you can tell just the passion that Levshinov plays with on every single night. And it's a reminder that the kid is still 19 years old. Absolutely hilarious celebration. But I thought he had a pretty good bounce back game last night. Louis Crevier took a penalty early on in the game, made some nice plays defensively when the Blackhawks were shorthanded. Aside from that, didn't really notice him all that much, not as much as I did in his opening 2 games of the season. Wound up playing 13 minutes on the back end for the Blackhawks in this one. But Lukas Reichel, healthy scratched for the third time now in 4 games. Not really surprising, just, again, considering the narrative that's been around him entering the 25-26 season. But I'm sure it was not easy to get the news from Blashill last night, considering he did center the team's 4th line during the morning skate. Only played like 6 minutes in the game on Saturday because of all the penalties that were taken. He doesn't get minutes on the power play or the penalty kill, so that really limited his opportunities in his season debut. And the way that Blashill spoke after the morning skate, it kind of seemed like Reichel was going to be in the lineup. Blashill said with that short amount of ice time, it wasn't really a fair judgment on him. So because of that, I thought they were going to go with Reichel in the lineup for a second consecutive game. But sadly for him, that did not end up being the case. And it's just clear that Reichel, still an outsider of this group, remains in limbo with the Blackhawks. Team kind of needs him right now as they're a little banged up. Jason Dickinson just returning. Landon Slaggert's on IR. Joey Anderson still hasn't played for either the Blackhawks or the Ice Dogs so far this year, wherever he's going to start his season. So Hawks kind of need Lukas Reichel as an extra forward right now. But that's kind of unfortunate because, he's not going to be getting time on a consistent basis, especially with Blashill saying he's going to go with an 11 forward, 7 defenseman lineup pretty frequently. That's not going to help Reichel's case in getting into the lineup more times than not. I also wanted to bring up the Blackhawks face-off issues, which have been prevalent through their opening 4 games. Last night up against Utah, the Mammoth coming into this game, albeit they had only played 2 games, they were the worst team in the NHL at the face-off dot at 35.7%. The Blackhawks weren't much better. They were 30th in the NHL, winning just over 40% of their draws. But I was really interested to see how these 2 teams with some young center icemen were going to match up at the draw. And Utah came out on the right end of this category as they won 29 of the 53 faceoffs in this game. The Blackhawks actually lost 12 of the opening 18 draws in the first period, so they did battle back from a big deficit early on, but it's still just pretty clear regardless of who they're going to be playing. Excuse me, regardless of who they're going to be playing, it's pretty clear it's not going to be easy any night for this Blackhawks center ice group. And big to get Jason Dickinson back. I mean, he won 8 of the 17 draws, like I mentioned, but outside of him, it's expected to be Connor Bedard, Frank Nazar, and Ryan Green for however long as he's in the NHL, all 21 years old or younger, not a lot of experience in an NHL faceoff circle. Frank Nazar really struggled. He was the one who had the biggest troubles last night for the Blackhawks, winning just 6 of 15 draws. Ryan Green only took 5 faceoffs, and I feel like they should be giving him a little bit more of an opportunity there, but he won 2 of those 5. And then credit to Connor Bedard. He had his best game of the season so far at the faceoff dot. Again, not a huge sample size, but of the 6 faceoffs that he took, Connor Bedard won 5 of them. But again, like I said, it's pretty clear this is going to be a weakness for this Blackhawks team until they just get a little bit more experience. And honestly, these guys get a little bit older, get a little bit more familiar with the NHL linesmen who tend to give the benefit of the doubt to the veterans in these sorts of situations. Not surprising. This is a problem for the Blackhawks in their opening 4 games, but it's going to be interesting to see if they can improve as a group. If Michael Pekka, yes, Michael Pekka, I always get Michael and Matthew confused. If Michael Pekka can help them take strides in the faceoff dot throughout the course of the season, I don't expect it to be, real savvy right out of the jump, but the Blackhawks, like they have to do as a team this year, we got to see some sort of improvements at the draw here. And then last but certainly not least, the power play issues. While the second unit did cash in for the game-winning goal, big tally from Andrei Burakovsky, it just remains such a struggle for this top unit to enter the offensive zone. And I asked Jeff Blashill about it after the game. He said, I don't disagree with you. He thinks it's kind of been something unique that's happened to that group every single night, whether it's, a certain guy making unforced errors or another having some bad passes. But he said these guys need to dig in a little bit more and do a better job. And if they don't, there's going to be some more competition. Maybe some guys who are playing on the second power play unit go into the top power play unit role, or Blashill is just going to start giving the second unit more ice time because they were definitely the more efficient of the two units in last night's game. The Blackhawks only had 3 power play opportunities, but they were definitely the ones who generated more and the more chances and the more dangerous chances of the two units. The Blackhawks top man advantage, Bedard, Teravainen, Nazar, Bertuzzi, and Rinzel didn't really have anything going all night long, and that's not something new. That's been an issue for them through these opening 4 games of the year. Burakovsky's PPG last night was just the second power play goal that the Blackhawks have in their opening 4 games. Got to get the man advantage going because that's definitely going to aid in this team scoring more than 2 goals in a single game. All right, there are my full thoughts from last night's 3-1 win over the Utah Mammoth, one the Blackhawks desperately needed to get before hitting the road to face off with the St. Louis Blues for a lovely 8:52 p.m. Central Time puck drop tomorrow. Absolutely ridiculous. Don't understand that at all. Coming up in just a moment, though, Blackhawks fans, I'll get into a quick prospects update and talk about Oliver Moore's big Sunday with the Rockford IceHogs. But first, I do got to show some love, Jesus, to one of today's sponsors, which is FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer because right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. And what I personally love about FanDuel is that it's quick, it's easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. With player props, same-game parlays, and now more ways than ever to get in on the action, are you ready to play? All you got to do is download the FanDuel app now or go and visit FanDuel.com today in order to get started. Again, that's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet and win $300 in bonus bets when it wins. All right, segment 3, getting into a quick Blackhawks prospect update because what a weekend it was for several Blackhawks prospects. First and foremost, starting with Oliver Moore, who, as I've mentioned on the show, probably could be an NHLer right now if the situation was different and the Blackhawks were like contending for, expected to be a playoff contender and they needed a boost inside their top 6, top 9 forward group, someone who could play with a lot of pace and provide a good two-way play, almost in a similar vein to what Ilya Mikheyev provides, but undoubtedly with higher offensive upside. Oliver Moore did open up the year with the Rockford IceHogs because of the thrive, not survive mentality, and Kyle Davidson and the organization just preaching patience. But what a showing it was from Oliver Moore in the IceHogs 6-2 win over the Iowa Wild on Sunday night, scoring his first 2 professional goals. Both of them were absolute beauties, showing off the wheels to give himself open ice and the opportunity, and then also displaying the sneaky good shot that Oliver Moore possesses that, quite honestly, we didn't see a lot of these types of goals in his 2 seasons with the University of Minnesota. Absolute roof job over the blocker of the Wild goaltender both times. Both were absolute snipes from the 20-year-old forward. Is Oliver Moore 20 or is he 19? He's 20 years old. Incredible game from Oliver Moore. Also tallied a secondary assist on a Dominic Toninato power play goal. Primary assist was from Nick Lardis for his first career professional point. But these are the type of showings we want to see from Oliver Moore down there in the AHL. You want to come back up? You want to be part of the NHL roster? Well, then go and show us down in the AHL that you can absolutely dominate these guys. And I watched a full shift video that was released by @ShyProspects on X. Definitely go and follow him if you haven't done so already. Some incredible work covering all of the Blackhawks prospects. But in like the 30 seconds prior to Oliver Moore's opening goal, it was just so awesome to see him chase down a puck carrier for Iowa with the wheels that he possesses, using the sandpaper and grit that he plays with as well to go and force a turnover. And then you see the finesse side of things as well. Like I said, with the beautiful shot that he had, made a great cross ice feed on the power play, going from dot to dot to get Nick Lardis the puck, tick, tack, goal, setting up Dominic Toninato in front. this is what we want to see from Oliver Moore at the AHL level. And I predicted during my bold predictions episode that I dropped that Oliver Moore is going to play 50 games in the NHL this year. He's going to be on that Frank Nazar path. And this is why I feel that way, Blackhawks fans, because the speed that he plays with, I think it's just going to be too much for opposing AHL clubs to handle on certain nights. And if Moore keeps that up, we're going to be seeing him in a Blackhawk sweater sooner rather than later. Not that there's any rush to get him up to the NHL. It was only one game. But if he continues to control play at both sides of the ice like he did last night, I think we're going to be seeing Oliver Moore sometime between Thanksgiving and Christmas time up in the NHL with the Blackhawks. Also, got to give a shout out to 2025 first round pick Václav Nestrasil, who, I didn't expect his freshman season with UMass after coming out of the USHL as a little bit of a raw prospect. I admittedly did not expect the start of his freshman season with the Minutemen to go as well as it has. Scored in his debut last week, and then on Friday night became the first freshman in 10 years for UMass to pot a hat trick, wound up being named the Hockey East Rookie of the Week. And Nestrasil has 4 goals now through his opening 3 games. And in 2 of those 3 games, he's led the Minutemen in terms of shots on goal, 8 in his season debut. And then he added 7 on the night that he recorded a hat trick against Stonehill. Awesome development shown by Václav Nestrasil. Just looks like such a big boy out there. 6'6", 6'7", still has some weight to throw on, but he's already been bumped up to the second line for UMass after opening up the year on the third line. That is music to my ears. Awesome stuff from Václav Nestrasil early on in his freshman campaign. And joining him in the hat trick party over the weekend for the Blackhawks prospects was Marek Vanacker, who's now tied for the OHL lead in goals with 8 despite only having played in 6 games. He and Jake O'Brien are just going to tear this league up this year. Like I talked about when I went through my Marek Vanacker season preview episode over the summer, that's one of the deadliest, if not the deadliest duo in the entire Ontario Hockey League. And both Vanacker and O'Brien actually tallied a hat trick in Brantford's 8-6 win over Niagara on Sunday. Awesome start to the year for Vanacker as well. And shout out to fellow Blackhawks prospect Parker Holmes, who also plays for the Brantford Bulldogs. He tallied his first goal of the season, and it might have honestly even been his first goal with Brantford. I know he didn't have a goal in 21 games that he played last year, more so known for his fighting abilities, but I did see he scored his first goal of the season over the weekend as well. And then last but certainly not least, Sasha Boisvert didn't play in each of the last 2 games for Boston University. I did want to mention, though, BU is now up to number 1 in the rankings for college hockey. And in Sasha's debut, it was a 3-point game, scored his first goal with the Terriers, also added 2 assists. Doesn't sound like it's anything that's going to jeopardize him long term, but this early in the season, BU is just being precautionary because they don't want their top line center to go down early. And Cole Iserman and Ryder Ritchie truly are going to be one of the deadliest combinations in all of the NCAA this season. So I understand the patience shown by Jay Pandolfo and the Terriers coaching staff, but hasn't, hindered BU all that much early on in the season as they're up to number 1 in the USA rankings. Hopefully Sasha can return to the ice soon and continue to pick up where he left off in his debut with the club. But that's going to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks, everyone. As always, thank you all again for joining me on the show. Be sure to subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. Follow Locked On Blackhawks for free wherever you may be listening to your podcast. That way you don't miss out on any of the latest episodes. Just want to say thank you again to everyone for all the kind words that were shared yesterday. Definitely helped me get through a real difficult day. And I'll see you all next time on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.